Welcome to the RoadCast, the official podcast of the European Asphalt Pavement Association. I'm your host, Carsten Karcher, speaking to you from Brussels. In each episode, we bring together key voices from across Europe and beyond to talk about the asphalt paving industry and its future. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming someone who is no stranger to this industry or to EAPA. Joining me is Malcolm Simss, Director at the Mineral Products Association UK, representing MPA Asphalt. Malcolm has just celebrated his 25th year with the UK Asphalt Association, and he's been a driving force in EAPA committees for many of those years. In this episode, we'll talk about his work on the alarm survey, the UK's decarbonisation roadmaps, new standardisation developments, Brexit's impact on the UK asphalt sector, and of course, his career and collaboration with EAPA. Malcolm, welcome to the RoadCast.
Thank you, Carsten. Always good to be back in Brussels on a sunny day for a change. Always nice to see.
Yeah, that's very rare to have sunny weather in Brussels.
Yeah, used to the rain when I come here, but very pleasant.
Yeah. Malcolm, a few days ago you wrote on LinkedIn, 20 March 2000. I was just rocking up here on a day that changed my career. Attached was a picture with a 156 Buckingham Palace Road. What does that mean? Please explain it to us.
156 BPR, as we called it. We all like an acronym. So 156 Buckingham Palace Road was the office and headquarters of what was then the Quarry Products Association. And that was my first day working for them. So it was a move from out of the field, or in the field, if you like, from quarries and asphalt plants into a day-to-day office job representing this industry.
Wow, that means that you are more than 25 years in the association world. More than that in the asphalt world?
Yeah, I'd had a number of years working for who are actually our member companies. So it was I won't say a natural progression, but a good one, I think.
What originally brought you to the world of asphalt?
That's probably a difficult one. A lot of people I know say they've stumbled into asphalt by accident, and I was thinking about this a while ago, and I've got this strange, vivid memory of being a very small child. We just moved house, and my mother had kicked me out into the garden. I was getting under her feet, or whatever, as all small boys do. And I took my big brother's, we call them Tonka toys, so it's like a toy excavator. So I was digging around in the garden, in the path, and I spotted these sort of black, shiny stones. What are these? And I started trying to take them apart. So probably about 6 or 7, I was doing particle size analysis by sheer fluke. So I was trying to figure out why these things were stuck together and why they weren't just mud and dirt like everything else. So somewhere way back then, I had this fascination. And then that grew through school and university, and material science was something I got interested in. And I worked in civil engineering on construction sites, but always found myself drifting into the materials aspect of the job. And ended up sort of almost taking a backward step and joining one of our member companies in a laboratory as a technician. And hopefully haven't looked back since.
So that's more than 25 years. And can you summarize in brief words what has changed throughout this more than 25 years in the industry? Just to give an overview, we go in more details later.
Sure. Yeah. I think, strangely, there's probably more has stayed the same than has actually changed. The physics and the chemistry and the science of asphalt fundamentally hasn't changed. We've still got geology and stones and rocks, and then the chemistry with bitumen sticking them together. And on that basis, everything's much the same. One of the big changes I noticed and was involved with was, it's really boring for most listeners, but the harmonisation of European standards. That was a massive activity across Europe. I was involved early on. We were testing out new test methods to see if we could use them in the UK, if they gave us results that we understood and trusted and so forth. So I was involved with that. And then with the association, the transition period of translating what I call Senglish into usable language that UK users would understand in comparison to the standards that we've been using for decades before that. So it was a translation from our old product references into asphalt concrete, stone mastic asphalt, and the whole classification system, which was new to everyone. And as an association, we provided guidance to all our members and the whole the whole community on that transition. So that was a big step change. Outside of products and processes, I think positively, we've seen huge steps forward on health and safety. Our industry could easily be seen as a dangerous place to work. But yeah, the responsibility that organisations and individuals have taken to move that agenda forward has been fascinating. I remember again in one of the plants I worked on, and the company empowered every employee that if they thought they were doing something that was unsafe or risky, they could stop. It wasn't just a case of, okay, it's a bit risky, I'll keep going, I'll crack on, and I'll finish the job. They said, no, if you don't feel safe, you stop the job. You find a safe way to do that task. And that was such a refreshing change from that being, you must do this, to do what you have to do safely. And I think that's probably now normal. But again, in recent years, and it's a global challenge, we're all making strides forward again in the fields of sustainability, decarbonisation, facing those global challenges of reducing CO2 or whatever emissions we're responsible for. So we're being much more responsible actors in the environment.
We are a responsible industry.
We are.
Yeah. And your examples about health and safety are really impressive. And we also experience that from the European point of view, a lot has changed. What is today a normal situation was exceptional 20, 30 years ago. So health and safety is high on the agenda of each company, each association. A lot has changed in this sense.
Definitely.
True. And on the downside, what happened throughout the last decades? Financing went down a lot. And you are an expert in this. Maybe not in the finances, but the results of non-financing or under-financed infrastructure. Yeah. So just recently, UK Alarm Survey 2025 has been released, and you are really heavily involved in this. Yeah. So now it's the possibility to talk to our listeners. First of all, what is it about?
Yeah. So the Alarm Survey is a survey that we commission every year. ALARM stands for Annual Local Authority Road Maintenance Survey and Report. This year was the 30th issue of the report, so it's not a new subject, it's not a new challenge. It was started in, obviously, 1995, but it was actually done by our colleagues in the bitumen sector in the UK. It was more of a market analysis. So in the years leading up to that, we'd been at peak output, peak production, peak volumes for our industries, and we saw a sudden decline. And we said, well, what's going on? So instead of just, scratching our heads and trying to find out who's doing what or not doing what, they looked at it from the client's perspective. So we went out to the client sector, the road owners and operators, and said, why are we seeing these volume drops? They came back with a clear answer. We haven't got the money to spend on the roads. It's our job too. We're trying to look after the network, but we just simply haven't got the money. And so that then morphed, evolved. In the year 2000, we created what's called the Asphalt Industry Alliance, the AIA. So between ourselves, QPA, as we were then, and the Refined Bitumen Association. So that was the UK predecessor part of Eurobitumen. And so we created a joint venture to, two things. The first one was actually promoting our products. So promoting asphalt, the use of asphalt and the benefits of asphalt. But also to carry out that survey, to do that analysis of where is the money, where's it going, what's the result of not investing. And 30 years later, we're still carrying out the survey because we still need to. It gives us the opportunity to hold government and Treasury to account to say, your postbox is full of complaints about the condition of the road. And here's why. You haven't invested that money in maintaining them, keeping them in good condition. Sometimes it's difficult to get the mindset across that it's not spending money, it's investing money. You look at your own house, your own property, you don't just move in and let it fall apart around your ears. You paint the fence, you replace a tile on the roof if it's blown off. You do all those things to take care of your investment. I've ended up doing things presenting on TV, radio, stood up in the committee rooms in the House of Commons, speaking to MPs, just trying to get the importance of this topic to those that have the influence to make decisions and change things.
And do you see changes? Does your results of this alarm survey influence somehow policy investments in the UK?
We see, let's call them marginal successes every few years. It becomes a bit of a sport sometimes, or it feels like it's a bit of a sport. So we announce these dreadful data, these dreadful numbers, and then the DFT get additional money from the Treasury, from the central government, and they throw 100 million, 300 million, 500 million at the problem every few years. So every now and again, they think they can show, we're the good guys. We are investing. Here's extra money. You've been given extra money. But then you've got to put it in context to say, okay, you've given us 100 million, but the shortfall that the authorities tell us they had last year was over 1.2 billion. So you're giving us 10% of the solution. And that's only 1 year. This is a legacy. We started the survey in 95. So the problem was there then, and it's just increased year on year ever since.
And what are the key findings of this year?
This year, trying to remember my briefings, the backlog in maintenance, this is just England and Wales. So we got a backlog of work totaling nearly £17 billion.
Wow.
It's frightening. It's so big it almost means nothing. It's just difficult to get your head around it. But again, that's the legacy of those shortfalls every year. Wow. Summing up, yeah. And
which roads does it concern?
Yeah, these are just the local authority roads.
Local authority, okay.
So if you think of it's better to say what they're not. It's everything else except the motorway and the high-speed network. Mm-hmm. So National Highways in the UK has its own separate budget and is funded from the same departments, but through a different mechanism. They get £20 billion over 5 years. They haven't really got a problem. They just received 4.8 billion for 1 year.
But the network you're talking about with the alarm survey is 90 or 95% of the length of the total network of UK, most probably.
97%.
97, okay.
The latest official numbers, 97.3.
Because maybe not everybody is aware. Highways and motorways, it's just a very short part of the total length of a network of a country or Europe.
Yeah, as I say, in UK, it's about 3% of total road length. Local authority roads are over 200,000 miles in the UK. And again, the alarm survey indicates that 1 in every 6 miles of that network is classified as less than good condition. They classify them green, amber, red. So it's everything below green. The red stuff is, it's got structural failure going on. It might not last more than 5 years. And then the amber stuff is between 5 and 15 years structural life. So you've got an opportunity to do something with it. But 52% of the UK network, local networks, are getting past their sell-by date. It just baffles me how governments over time have invested in building these roads. Why do they feel as if it's not important to maintain them? The asset value alone is 400 billion. How can it get to a state where you need to spend so much to keep that asset to that value?
We need to invest to save these assets. Yeah,
that's
what belongs to every citizen of UK or citizen of Europe.
Yeah.
Also with the other network in Europe, it's unbelievable what happens with our societal assets.
Yeah, it's one of our mantras that we've built in recent years: invest to save. If you get your maintenance done properly and early, then you don't have those structural problems. You protect that surface. Water is the engineer's enemy. We know that as road builders. Yeah. If you keep the water out of that structure, keep it dry, it's going to outperform its own expectations. We're actually lucky because asphalt is such a unique product that things don't fail catastrophically, but the speed of the decline is just accelerating all the time. The less we look after it, the quicker it starts to fall apart. If you look after it early, spend little often rather than spend lots more later in its life.
Is there a message you would like to give to other national road authorities in Europe coming from the UK to learn from the findings of this alarm survey?
Just pray it doesn't happen to you.
I'm not sure if it's not similar in some of the Central and Western European countries, if it's the same level of deterioration, already existing deterioration of the road network.
Yeah. I've got graphs actually produced by charts from the OECD. The OECD, highly respected financial institution, and it shows you the levels of investment as a percentage of GDP for a number of European countries. And since 1995, we can see the UK curve going down like that and then flat bottoming out about 0.4% of GDP. Other countries that I've been into, travelled into, all the investment levels are way higher, and my experience of their road condition is significantly better than it is in the UK. I think the OECD made recommendations that nations should invest around 1% of GDP.
Yes.
If not 1.5% of GDP to maintain those assets. Invest in your highways. Yeah. Because the cost of replacement is that much higher.
Yeah. So this is really a important topic in the road industry. Also, when it comes to decarbonization of transport. Maybe we come to this in a few minutes. Sure. But I like to mention in this podcast that EAPA is regularly organizing an event in Brussels now with the European Road Maintenance Forum to also, that's how, alarm people that this is not only the case in the UK, also in Europe and maybe partly worldwide, that the road maintenance, not the new construction, but the maintenance of existing road network is highly underfinanced, and the figures you just mentioned. So whenever you're more interested as a listener in this topic, we will have some more information below this podcast in the show notes. So more information is available on this, and you will be one of the speakers of this year's event, which will be in April. Every first Thursday in April, we have this kind of event, and we all know that roads with a bad surface condition even increase fuel consumption, and then CO2 emissions of the transport rolling over or passing over these roads. So it's not a good idea not to have the road system in a bad shape or bad surface condition. So that's a big contribution national road authorities can give to decarbonization of transport. So estimations and calculations show that it's between 5 or more than 5% possible, up to 10. Some of the sources say, some of the research says. So that's a big amount if you look at all the transport emissions in Europe.
Yeah, it's definitely the power of big numbers. So even with a small improvement in condition, and IRI is a common measure, if you improve the road surface, enable people to travel more smoothly, they're using less energy, using less fuel in their vehicles, and you multiply that by the millions of vehicle journeys every day, then the amount of energy, fuel, and the resulting emissions it just multiplies up and up and up every time. We've kind of got past that stage in the UK of selling the positive because conditions are so negative, and that's what grabs headlines. We don't want, as an industry, to talk about potholes in the UK. That's the last thing we want to talk about.
Definitely, yeah.
But that's what the media love. That's what the public understand. That's their experience. That's how they feel the road. If everything was smooth, we'd be able to spend our members' money on doing some other campaign. We could be selling the positives, but we've got to get past that negative phase first. And that's what frustrates me.
So also not only the road authorities with their duty of keeping the roads in a good shape, good surface condition, is there also the challenge for the asphalt industry to decarbonize. We just released the roadmap from EAPA side towards net zero, of course, which you can see here if you have the video podcast, and it will also be in the show notes, of course. And the question is, what is the UK authorities doing to support the industry to decarbonize? What is the ambition for the administration and also the industry in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're no different to anyone else with the ambition and the long-term targets. UK has obviously signed up to Kyoto and Paris and all those agreements to decarbonise by 2050. National Highways, our National Roads Authority, they've compressed that window. They want to be net zero operator by 2040. So that gives us an incentive to come forward with solutions. Like a lot of associations and other activity we see in other countries, we've tried to deal with what we call the low-hanging fruit first. Get some quick wins early, get the obvious technologies, enable them, adopt them, and drive them forward to get those. They may not be significant gains, but there's something. You know, it's getting us on the right path so that we've actually got the mental attitude of what do we do next? What's our next step in our decarbonisation plan? Because it's only when you add up all the options, and again, through the net zero plan, which I was fortunate to work with you on, you know, small changes all add up. 5% here, a couple of percent there, over that period, you know, it takes you right down to 60% by 2030, 35. I think it's one of the EU goals. So, yeah, I don't think we're any different to the rest of Europe and possibly the rest of the world in trying to get those targets. Actually, what we need to do is get ahead of those targets, is get bigger wins sooner. And that's the challenge for innovation in the very broadest sense in delivering that decarbonisation target.
Do you also already see changes in the UK in this perspective? You talked about the mindset, but also in reality, are there changes, measurable changes maybe also?
Yeah, this year I managed to get hold of some data from our members on war mix asphalt technologies. We've been promoting them as the association from around 2015, so 10 years. I remember we had a big launch. We did a video. We attended every conference going, promoting war mix asphalt. This year, we've seen, and it's in EAPA's Asphalt and Figures actually, we're now producing around 30% of all asphalt in the UK with war mix technologies. So we're reducing temperatures, we're reducing energy, we're reducing emissions. That's the simple equation. So it took a long time to get there. The adoption is still a bit, I would say, guarded. But again, lots of little small changes add up to a good picture. And to be fair to National Highways, they've been one of the key adopters. They changed their specifications, war mix asphalt by preference or default. But again, still only the first step, really. But it's a quick win. We're seeing increased volumes. We've got to see reduced emissions next, and it all adds up.
And this is something you see in many European countries now. So the temperature-reduced asphalts, war mix asphalts, as we call them, and indeed we have been working for many years, at least from the association side, national associations, European associations on this, also more than 10 years. Yeah, true. But now it's really, you see the changes coming in the Netherlands, in the UK, in France, in Germany. The regulations have to be adopted, have to be changed a lot, a lot to make this happen. And the European standardization also, when it comes to the product regulations. And you're an expert in this, the product regulations, and the standardization. But before we come into this field, I'm curious. So the UK is not member of EU, of the European Union anymore. So we have been EU 28, now we're EU 27, unfortunately, in my point of view. But you're still into it in many ways. And one of these ways is the standardization and the process. And you are one of the persons I know that is highly involved in standardization processes in Brussels or from the Brussels level. Yeah. So how could that be? You left EU.
Yeah, we left the EU. What a lot of people don't fail to remember is we're still here. We're this.
But don't get me wrong. I'm happy that you're still here. So for me, it would be great to have 28 still. Yeah. EU 28.
We've got these little islands off the northwest coast. We are actually physically connected. I came through the Channel Tunnel here to Brussels, and that's not leaking as far as I could see. So yeah, we're still connected. But actually, the standards arena and the regulatory side, I sometimes call it legacy regulation. So when Brexit happened, the government created the EU exit regulations. And effectively what that did was adopted all the regulations that were already in UK law from Europe, all the ones that the public were complaining about. And they signed a bill that said, these are still our regulations. Because they didn't have time to rewrite every regulation for every aspect of society, not just our business. There wasn't time to do that. There wasn't time to even debate what might change. And frankly, even since Brexit, it's still not being debated. The UK government, to my experience, is still looking over the fence and saying, "Oh, what's happening in Europe? What methods can we use to regulate we've got the same problems. We all got the same challenges.
Of course.
We're in global economies.
Yeah.
What's Europe doing to deal with this? Oh, that's a good idea. We'll do that. So we copy the homework all the time.
And you don't even copy, you're part of it. You're creating this regulation, these ideas, put them on paper together with the colleagues of Europe. What is the latest developments in the standardization? In brief words, I know you could talk for hours on that.
Days.
But days, okay, even days. So just very brief for the audience.
So the biggest impact and the biggest change that's right on top of us now is the adoption of the new construction products regulation. So again, that's one of the regulations that we retained in the UK as written, completely verbatim, some tweaks around the edges. But we've now got the new CPR, and that's changing, again, the whole environment for our products, and all construction products, not just us. So it's definitely being more accountable and being able to demonstrate, as we said earlier, about responsible sourcing, responsible production. So there's going to be an added increase on our sustainability performance, how we demonstrate that, how we record it, above and beyond what we as engineers always love to talk about, physical performance, the mechanical performance, all those nerdy things that we love about our materials. So yeah, that's an evolution for our industry and others, is demonstrating our sustainability, our environmental credentials on top of our physical performance.
So the sustainability comes into place next to physical properties. Yeah. Can you explain a little bit more about the sustainability aspects in there? What do we account now for? Yeah.
Even within the UK, in recent years, everybody's obsessed with carbon. Carbon. What's the carbon value of that 100 tonnes that I procured last night? Past research that we did within our association, we produced a tool to measure carbon. That was in 2011 or 2013. We published that. We're just doing a revision.
What is the aspect?
The aspect tool.
Yeah.
We're just currently finalising a revision of that. So watch this space. Because carbon is no longer the only impact.
Yep.
It's the one that people think they understand the most, and it's expressed in terms that people get. They just understand. They can imagine carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which is a bad thing. But on top of that, there's, I think, 36 other indicators of environmental performance. I don't pretend to remember them all.
Name us some.
Or even some of that. I don't even understand some of them. Eutrophication.
Yeah. Water
usage. Land use change. So if you're extracting a product from land, or you grow things to put into asphalt, if that's a change of land use from, say, agriculture or something else, that could have potential negative impact on the groundwater. So you've got to account for all of these things in addition to just measuring CO2 outputs.
Yeah. So there's a system in place now to measure or to evaluate the impact of a product on the environment and the global warming potential, which is CO2 and methane.
Well, methane's an equivalent.
And so on, and so for the global warming potential, that's just one part of it.
Yeah.
But it's the one we speak most about.
Yeah.
And but now we have an independent tool to calculate for products and to compare the impact, the environmental impact of this products. And this is really a game changer in the product regulation, product standardization.
And there's more than one tool. This whole environmental product declaration, this whole sphere, this whole world is a new industry. It's a new business in itself. So you've got sustainability, environmental experts out there who create the tools, the methodologies to do the sums so that
Yeah.
we can declare
Yeah.
them. We have to understand that process, that system. So that
Coming from the material science.
coming from the material side, so that we can do the right thing in developing our materials to reduce their impact.
Yeah.
Which is common sense.
Yeah, it's common sense. It's all over the society,
Yeah.
in all aspects of society. And if we really want to take circularity for serious, we need to know all the impacts of each product. Is it a washing machine?
Yeah.
Is it a plate, a coffee cup, or a ton of asphalt?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really good, because the standardization you were talking about is not only applied to construction materials. It affects all our life.
The washing machine is a classic example.
Yeah.
If you buy a new washing machine, you've got the little charts that show its environmental performance or impact, energy consumption, and so forth from the A to F or whatever. So that's how they've addressed declaring their impact.
So you have been a long time EAPA member in different committees. I remember from the very beginning, 13 years ago almost, when I started working for EAPA, you have always been there, and you have maybe you surely have a history before that. Yeah. But I wanted at least highlight one or two things before we come back to the EAPA work, because the sustainability thing we just talked about is very, very important, and that changed a lot in the last decade. So you have been awarded the Asphalt Advocate of the Year 2020. You have been awarded the EAPA Excellent Award 2022. So Malcolm, you have a very high reputation in EAPA. Congratulations again to this, and it's really, really highly received. So through all these years in your EAPA, that should just highlight all the work you do in EAPA. You have been an ingredient part of all these developments, also in EAPA, when it comes to EPD tools or to product category rules, which we developed together in a small task force. You, me, and some other colleagues from France, the forerunners at that time on that topic. And we said, and 10 years, 15 years ago, we sat down and said, or 12 years ago it was, we sat down and said, okay, that's the best we know. Yeah. We put it on paper now. Yeah. And this document, the guidance document from EAPA for product category rules and EPDs, environmental product declarations, was the basis for the European standard, which is still under development. So we've been ahead of our time 10 years at that time. And thank you for all the efforts and work you put in there. So this is just one example of all the incredible work you did for EAPA, and we developed together through all these years, you and the colleagues in the committees. And there was a big change in the last 10 years coming from this purely technical material science to all this environmental, health and safety, we talked about this before, aspects. And the industry has changed a lot in this. And we are much more focused on this health, safety and environment than on pure or sheer material science now.
The way I talk about it sometimes is that we have these health, safety, environment, sustainability challenges and technical solutions. Because something will change over on that part of the equation in the environment that we need a product or process solution to deliver. So they're never disconnected. And that's the challenge for associations and our member companies and organizations, is linking those things together and getting it right and actually delivering.
When I look at your EAPA career, and you being a key figure in the EAPA committees for so many years now, how did your relationship with the EAPA start?
So when I first started with QPA, a number of our members were attending the EAPA committees, the TC, HSE and so forth. And they served their time. Some of them retired. And with the financial challenges that we've seen everywhere, the companies weren't willing or able to support their own staff travelling to represent the UK in Europe. And as the association, we were already there supporting them, but because the companies couldn't get the bodies in, there was a greater expectation on us as the association to do it. And I think one working group turned into 2, turned into 3 committees, turned into the executive committee, the directors
Yes,
group.
you are in all of the EAPA committees. You're even in the communication committee.
Yeah.
Because you need that for the alarms away, and we have to work together in this. Yeah.
And all the things that we achieve in technical world, in the sustainability world, there's no point in us knowing it. Everybody needs to know. Our members in the UK, the rest of the EAPA members, the rest of Europe, potential members, and our clients and our end clients. Everybody needs to know that we are responsible. We're doing our bit. And that's the communication piece. Like I say, I never thought I'd be doing TV and radio interviews in my career. But it's just adding. It just stacks everything up and get the message out there.
So this is definitely one of the needs the industry has when you look at the European level from EAPA side to do the communication, to prepare communication that can also be used in the national associations.
Yeah.
What else would you see is the benefit of having this European umbrella association, EAPA, especially also for the UK?
Yeah, I think it's that, I could talk about that community feel. So we're all facing the same challenges. We're all expected to come up with a solution or solutions that work for our customers. If we discuss them, people in certain countries can learn from somewhere else. When I first came into the industry, the UK was just starting to adopt SMAs, stonemastic asphalts, from Germany and France. So, and that was probably, again, just before my time, that was probably fueled by discussions in EAPA. So our technical guys were talking to the French technical guy, the German technical guys, and said, "Oh, we've got this great product, you should try it." So then, yes, we've imported that technology, that philosophy into the UK, and that's what we use now. It's the most common surface course material out there. So it's those things, and I see it particularly with our cousins particularly in more Eastern Europe, the smaller nations. They've a lot to learn. They admit it. Come along and they say, "Well, you guys have been doing it for 20 and 30 years. What should I do? What shall I not do?" Sometimes that's the more important question. What should I not do when I'm making this material or designing this material? And they'll get to the same point quicker than it took all of us to get there. So there's huge benefit for them. But I would say even for the UK, that's a bit arrogant. The UK still has a lot to learn from everywhere else. We're not perfect. We don't get everything right. When we adopted SMAs, we got them wrong, actually.
It's a process, always.
We had an obsession with texture. But again, we've worked through it. And I have no doubt there is more to come, more to be shared between EAPA member countries and the whole community, the plant and equipment members, the additives guys. They've all got solutions to get us to that end goal.
Yeah, together we are stronger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And even if you are one of the stronger ones, you can become stronger. If you listen to the others, open to new technologies, new developments, and it's in the last decade, I would say it's more the environmental health and safety developments coming from some countries which are more active in this, and you would be surprised you're not surprised, but maybe the listeners would be surprised to hear that some of the big European countries are not on the forefront of everything. Yeah, so they also have to learn from smaller ones or from other ones who have been more active in different fields when it comes especially to sustainability and environmental aspects.
Yeah. I know, for example, that my colleagues who've sat in EAPA, particularly on the sustainability side, they've organised their own visits as their companies to colleagues in Norway who sit around the EAPA table. They say, they're getting it right. I'll have a word with them.
That's
it's that exchange.
Very nice to hear that.
Exchange of views and opinions and expertise. It's really impressive.
One of my colleagues in the Brussels floor from an association said the beauty of a European association is, or not the beauty, the benefit is, if someone has a challenge in Europe, make sure you can be sure someone else already had it and has a solution for you.
Yep.
If he has a good solution for something, be happy to hear about it in EAPA. So it's a platform for exchange of information, for collecting information, giving it back to all the members on the same level with a high quality. And also, of course, because we have this standardization regulation going on in Brussels, having the eyes and ears open in Brussels, what's next? Yeah.
And it's a general thing about associations, is particularly at a national level, where we have companies who are competitors exchanging information on a common basis. The amount of transparency that exists in, I wouldn't say a cutthroat market, but it's really surprising to see competitors working with each other to find a common solution. And that's replicated at European level of, well, in Spain we had this problem, this is how we addressed it. In France we had the same problem. We came at it a different way. In the UK, well, we did option 3. And it's understanding the basics and making it work for you. So EAPA cannot say, this is the only solution to this problem.
Yep.
It's a case of, here's a range of options. Whatever works for you in your country, go with it, good luck. And it's just that awareness and that community. Again, it's a word I keep coming back to. Family.
That's what was very interesting to discuss with you about this and the insights. How would you describe the UK European asphalt industry in 1, 2, or 3 words?
I was trying. I knew you were going to ask this question. You gave me a little brief. I think one of the big buzzwords that's coming forward for our sector is resilience.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And it's still a concept that's being understood, but I would think, most of our member countries have resilient industries, and they provide resilient products. We saw with the pandemic, at least in the UK, our industry was one that didn't stop. Our guys were still out there producing materials to ensure that goods still got around the country. People still got food on their plates. They still had toilet roll. They could still get to the hospital in the worst case. But our industry was still there delivering for society. So that's one element of resilience. We can work through lots of challenging times. Pretty robust characters around our industry. I know we know some of
nice
them.
Wording. Nice wording.
It's an interesting place to operate. If someone doesn't believe you, they'll soon tell you. But there's always robust support as well. When things are going right, you get all the support you need, and things go wrong, everybody rallies together to find the right answer. So they're probably 2 of my robust and resilient.
So is it an interesting industry for young people?
It should be. I told that story at the start about digging around in the garden and finding asphalt and tearing it apart. I think every young child, certainly every young boy, when they're 6 or 7, they want to be a train driver or a digger driver. We had the excavator,
firefighter.
And somehow when they become 11 or 12, they want to be a programmer or a content creator. And I don't know what changes in those few years. But we need more practical people. We need people with that attitude of delivery, looking to do things for others. Engineers. There's a whole scope, a whole raft of opportunities in our industry. people look at road workers and say that's the asphalt industry. Well, it's not. It's how did that material get to that paving machine? Who designed that paving machine? Who programmed it? Who's testing the material that comes out of it? There's a whole string of options for careers in our sector. And a lot of them are becoming digitalized. So yeah, if they want to be a programmer, why not be a programmer in our sector? They're still just computers. So there's still a long way, a lot of opportunities. You got commercial guys, technical guys. There's so much choice and opportunities out there.
Thank you for this very positive outlook.
I do try.
Malcolm, thank you for sharing your insights. And congratulations again on your more than 25 years in the dedication to the asphalt sector. It was really a pleasure having you here on the EAPA RoadCast. And thank you to our listeners. If you found this episode informative, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your network. You can also explore more about our work on the EAPA website, eapa.org. Check the show notes below the podcast, leave a comment, and stay tuned for more conversations about the road ahead. This is the RoadCast from the European Asphalt Pavement Associations. Thanks for listening, and we'll see